when you come across conversations or topics or titles, they are like they're like unconventional. They're not like the things you come across out there. They are stuff that kind of get you to look beyond the headlines, to look beyond the rage, the rant, to look beyond the hate and all these things, to see the driving force behind it and see what you are actually missing as well. So then others have said, you know what? If anyone is yet to be convinced that indeed the conversation around everybody go their separate ways, if you have never been convinced before, this should be your moment. It's going to get worse. There is no way out of this. And the way they are pushing it, I fear that, yeah, they probably will have their second civil war before anybody knows it. I mean, you know Rwanda, and then in Rwanda, the Tutsis and the Hutus, the hatred they have towards themselves, the institutionalized hatred at the time, whereby people hated themselves more than they hated the criminal politicians who were actually shortchanging them. Then boom, one of them died in an assassination where they believed that his plane was shot down. He's from a particular tribe. The other tribe became the targeted victims. The bloodshed, bloodlet, like everyone has been waiting for that moment to begin the killing. That's exactly what APC is pushing in that contraption. They've used this division to gain power. Threat, fear, intimidation, and all of those stuff. There is always a time that they can't put a break on it. I support where people, like, this is it now, right? Where if you want to cut down on something and say, you know what, before Nigeria descend into a bloody killing field, where those who are milking Nigeria, their friends from outside Nigeria and the rest of them, where they are going to have something bigger on their hands, there is something that the political class seems to be enjoying because it keeps them in power. It gets people so confused and lost, never to even come together. Not even hunger could bring them together. Do you even believe that? So rhetorics like this are to be condemned from wherever they are coming from. You call them out because they are not speaking for you. They are leading you to that dark hole. From every tribe, you see them push narratives like this. Whether they are doing it from their unstable mental health, or they are doing it from the position or from the corner of their trauma or damages done to them by Nigeria or by anyone. This should be called out, and individuals engaged in this should be punished. And those of you who are still holding on to this contraption, for how long, Guy? For how long? I'll keep asking that. For how long? Going forward. Here is the guy who was once, speaking for Atiku on why you shouldn't make a mistake of letting the APC continue. And that's Daniel Bulaba. Daniel Bulaba from his flat in London, where he said is observing that Tinubu from far believes that Tinubu has done so well. Right. He was on fire and chasing rats and all that stuff, right? He said Tinubu is not getting commendation. I think that's what he said. Commendation for the successes in some important decision is made. I know this is going to be a little bit annoying, right? We just want to have it on record. They said Tinubu statistics is working fine, but when things are not working fine, that is when a lot of you will remember statistics. They said the economy is improving, things are getting better, he's making appointments, security is this and that, in his words.
Because I know, for instance, the GDP has appreciated in the last quarter, I think 3.19, and then there's the inflation number you call. But for the average Nigerian wants to see that. I used to buy eggs for 20-50 naira, but this government came in and egg is now a bit of a luxury, 300 naira at the end of the day. Things used to be quite reachable and affordable are not within reach. So averagely, things that were basic are now luxury. Until that is reversed, look at what we're defining as stability in our currency. Naira finding its level is now at 1,500. Is that what Nigeria wants?
So the answer is simple. You see, this ping pong approach to divert attention when government makes progress will not help us. Whenever the government pushes the idea of specifics on those things that you can touch and relate with, people will bring numbers to us and say, what you're talking about doesn't make sense because even the stat says this and this. When the stats start working for the government, people then abandon that and say statistics will not go chop and we will see the reality. My answer to the person who may be confused and who is probably worried about the situation is just simple. The president recognizes the situation and is working hard. But for those who want reason why, even though the numbers are showing on the positive, but why is it that it has not made a magical translation? The answer is simple. Those of them who stand in the opposition and have been criticizing the government, we ask them to provide the alternative of what they would have done if they have come take over government, in which, number one, no money on ground, in which, number one, you have 76 trillion, you have the return, in which, number one, you don't even have money to subsidize for the fuel, you don't even have money to back up the naira. What would you have done? The oil output then was low. Our oil output has increased to 1.4 to 1.6. We are making progress. So our focus is on those Nigerians who are deeply concerned and are prepared to listen, to tell them that, yes, we are not where we are supposed to be, but we have left where we used to be. And we are making that gradual process so that we'll come to that point where everybody in this country will begin to see that development and economic development, and it will touch every facet of our lives: healthcare, education, food, transportation, and all of these areas that the government is assiduously working every night to change it.
Mr. Bulaba, the truth is that nobody will be looking for trouble when there's none, and nobody will be looking for pain when he's having a great time. So these are the realities. So we're familiar with the numbers and we know when it's going up and coming down, but reality is reality. So, but there's another part that is.
So what do you do? What do you do when the numbers are going up on the positive? Don't we need to acknowledge?
No, we will reference everything. We'll reference people's experiences and the numbers as well. Now, some numbers are going down. We'll reference it as well.
So the recent increase and improvement in the number, what do you call it? Commendable or not?
No, it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying how does it reflect on the people's day-to-day life? That's just all I'm saying. But let's move on now.
So how it will reflect? Okay.
Let's move on to other things because we don't have so much time because I wanted to have your take on a couple of other issues. Now, one other issue that is of concern is this issue of some people have called it cracking down on journalists. Some people have called it dissent on cracking down on dissenting voices. We've seen journalists being arrested, some being released, and we can count a couple of numbers that we've seen in recent time. And it's becoming disturbing. From your objective point of view as a lawyer, under this government, are we really freely speaking and safely speaking as a people, even as journalists? I'm asking you as a lawyer, not as a politician.
Yes. No, as even a patriot, it doesn't matter whether lawyer has done it as a patriot. If something is not working, we should be able to say it because we all want a country that moves forward. I will make bold to say that we are making appreciable progress with respect to free speech, and I can count not less than 5 prominent critics of this government that are working freely. Now, for those who are arrested, you have to deal with them on a case-by-case basis. Because even if you are a journalist, if you are involved in a crime, you don't have immunity. That's the point. Even if you are a lawyer to the journalist, if you are involved in a crime, you don't have immunity. And the other thing is we have the courts to preserve the rights of the Nigerian people. If you are unlawfully detained or unlawfully arrested, you can approach the court and seek for the enforcement of your fundamental human right. I, for one, unless if somebody comes with the contrary report, I, for one, believe that under this administration of President Bola Tinubu, the rights of the Nigerian people are protected. And you need to see fiercest and prominent critics of this government, and they are moving freely. If tomorrow any critic of this government's right is infringed by the law enforcement, I will be one of the first persons that will come out and criticize the actions of the law enforcement. The president even made it clear when they were about to go into for the protest. He warned that no law enforcement personnel or operative is permitted to stop the Nigerian people from protesting. When was the last time we had that kind of words?
Well, I didn't know you landed on your thought. I was just listening to it. My own is to ask the question because at the end of the day, a couple of our colleagues. I'm not talking about channels television now.
Nuisance, Lele.
It's called image laundering. Currently, there are 11 journalists arrested by Tinubu. One of them is a guy that just returned from the UK. They arrested him at the airport because he did a piece on how Tinubu and gang, okay, how to stop the probe or continue the probe of Emefiele, especially when they discovered the lucrative deal that Emefiele and Bokuwari made with these two American banks, JP Morgan's and the other, right? And they used the Nigerian foreign reserve as a collateral. Do you remember that? It was actually among the reasons why they had to stop the Emefiele's for that probe, because it'd be like, say, they hit the jackpots there. So the guy got to Nigeria and they picked him up. The other guy, who was supposed to be a whistleblower, that means a whistleblower is somebody who helps tell the world exactly what the criminals in government are hiding that they want to keep away. It's called PDOM. They kidnapped him from River State about 8 days ago. For 6 straight days, they handcuffed him. No food. Now, we have heard that 2 of his fingers, they are becoming rotten because during the torture time, they broke them. That they have refused to heal. Yeah. The guy is still chained somewhere for releasing some documents that they were like shouldn't have been released. And then we are talking about documents like how Tinubu's Minister of Interior, Olubunmi Ojo, used his own personal company, which he lied that he's already resigned from, that it was his wife that is now controlling it. Now, Olubunmi Ojo's company took a consultancy job from Better Edu, that runs over 700 million naira. And it was just for the Olubunmi Ojo's company to help put together, do research, and put together the names of the poor people in Akwa Ibom, Cross River, Abia, and Ekiti. 4 states, 788 million naira combined. Now, consultancy, you know, basically make them share the money, just to help them look for poor people and tell us who is poor and who is not poor. Among the over 8 billion naira that Omobeta squandered in a space of 6 months when she is a minister, she got suspended because of this. The guy that leaked that document, they finally kind of tracked him, found him, and kidnapped him. And right now, he's not being charged to court. Nobody's allowed to see him. He's rotting away. He's sick, not fed, and nobody's allowed to see him. In the Tinubu's Nigeria. Nigeria is now producing 1.6 million barrels of crude oil. Okay. Can you tell us how much money you've made from the crude oil? $1.6 million. Mr. 1.6 million barrels a day. Have you heard them remitted any penny from the NNPC Nigeria? No. But they came out recently. And that is NNPCL, Abina NNPLC. Mele Kyari, he came out to celebrate that for the first time in the history of Nigeria, NNPC made a profit of 3 trillion naira. What does that even mean? Profit from what? Like what does that mean? This is the part of the GPT going on. So you have 1.6 million barrels a day. How much does that come to every day? How much is that every month? But they will say that to you. Because if you ask them, okay, how does that now affect you? They will say, don't worry, wait, it's still going to affect you. Bulaba
is involved in any conduct that undermines the security of the state that journalist will be arrested. Just recently, when there was a protest from different parts of this country in which people were committing crime, the courts were asked to work 24 hours. And the cases, once they arrest somebody, in less than 48 hours, the person is convicted or he's free. So here is the point. I know of one fellow, they call him Pidom also because people using pseudonyms. I learned he was arrested recently. I have been following that case to see if the law enforcement arrested him on a crime that relates to undermining of the national security. And if yes, he should be charged to court. Even if not, if he's detained in custody, the law is clear. You must charge the person within 48 hours or you release the person to go without, to go free. And that one, everyone that is a citizen of Nigeria has to hold up to it. But you need to know in the last election, there are some people who call themselves protesters. They were actually involved in heinous crimes that undermine the security of the state. You see, all I'm trying to say is whether you're a journalist or a lawyer, you cannot hide under that umbrella to commit a crime.
Mr. Bola, this is my apologies, Mr. Bola. This is where I'm going. That's why I use the word rights and responsibilities. We know where the line is drawn as journalists because we're trained. But this is the concern. For instance, Pidom's case, it took some literal shouting and uproar. Now, the police now released a statement that is in their custody. We've also had journalists being arrested, not traceable for a few days, and people are looking, where is this person? Is that even acceptable in a democracy? If the man has committed a crime within the line of his work, he should be charged to court, rather than a Gestapo approach, as some have perceived it to be. That's what I want you to speak to.
And I want to reiterate it over and over. No citizen of the country by our constitution who is arrested on allegation of crime that should be detained beyond 2 days. I am aware there are other laws that permit the law enforcement. Take, for example, EFCC. If EFCC arrests you, you know, and DSS, there are a number of times you can stay. 2 weeks are renewable for another 2 weeks if they come to court. In all of these cases, they have to seek the authorization of the court to keep the person in detention. But without the due process of law, no law enforcement in Nigeria by law is permitted to arrest unlawfully or detain unlawfully. And all of us as citizens of the country, we have to stand on that. And for the journalists, I want to advise, if you're doing the work of journalists, make sure you have people that cover your track. Because when you disappear and nobody knows your whereabouts, until maybe after 1 week people get to know, it will be difficult for you to be able to tell between A and B or which and quick. Like in the case of Peter, the report is that people didn't know his whereabouts until after a week or so when one journalist brought it out, then the police alert. You also need to know, Nigerian police is a work in progress. Work in progress. It's a work in progress. All of law enforcement in Nigeria, DSS, even the army, all of them came out of police historically. So you can understand the rich history of the police and the weaknesses of the police. And every day we work towards, correcting these anomalies.
Totally out of time. But the DSS and the NIA now have new bosses. I would like your expectation on that. Juxtaposing it with what we're seeing with medical doctors. My producer will put up his slide now. I hope you can see it, hopefully. These are the numbers of this. The doctors sent us this, the National Association of Resident Doctors. Doctors that have been kidnapped since 2021. Some have been in detention for upwards of 8 months. Others lost their lives in the face of an attack. Others, their whereabouts are unknown. In fact, they say about 32 of them. So doctors are now on strike. How should the government approach this as urgently as possible? Mr. Bola, 1 minute.
Are you saying that these doctors in detention are in detention because they went on strike?
No, the doctors are on strike because some of, I meant to say that they're in kidnappers' den.
Okay, kidnappers are not state machinery or state actors. They are not state actors, and they kidnap everybody and they kidnap at random. But anybody in the custody of law enforcement, like I'm saying, charge them to court or release them on bail. In fact, there are cases where you release them unconditionally. But I welcome the appointment of the DGs of NIA and DSS, and the president's decision, especially with respect to this tool, has gone, far to deepening this idea of career progression in their respective services. And I don't know much of the NIA, but for the DSS, I know he's an astute, out-and-out professional, and I believe he will bring reform there.
All right, absolutely. Mr. Daniel Bella, thank you for your thoughts.
Nuisance lele.
That's Daniel Bulaba talking about, I think he evaded that question, and I was kind of smuggled into it by Chamberlain anyway. In Sokoto, right? A lot of them feels like the security they need so badly in Sokoto. Sokoto people themselves have discovered that, man, it is inside their own Sokoto. They took it upon themselves to enter bush to go and free the recently kidnapped 150 villagers. And it was caught on tape. I'm not sure if they succeeded. That's the situation. I don't know. Like there's this voice in me that somehow I know that a desperate situation sometimes requires desperate actions. I just felt like they kidnapped 150 people and about 1,500 enter bush. Is that no more or less like walking straight into their hands, like who could take all of us? I'll give that a follow-up after today. For this lady who is very concerned, especially according to her, why is it not so impossible to be saved from terrorism? But my dear sister, if you ask me, now who we go ask?
Do you know that bandits are on TikTok? Bandits are on TikTok. How many more bandits need to post on TikTok for the government to take this seriously? How many more people need to die for the government to take the insecurity in northern Nigeria seriously? How many more women need to be raped for the government to take the insecurity in Iowa seriously? How many more villages will be burnt for the government to take the insecurity in northern Nigeria seriously? How can bandits be posting TikToks, but somehow they cannot be traced? What kind of audacity do the bandits have to be able to post on TikTok? So I ask again, why is it that when someone comes out to demand the government to do its job, all of a sudden the DSS are all over you, and then you get detained? But a bandit can post on TikTok. You cannot tell me that the bandits have more ammunitions than our military. You cannot convince me that they are more equipped than our military. You cannot convince me that they know the job more than the military. You can't tell me that. So what is taking so long? Do you know that?
How many times would they tell you before you know that Nigeria is not for you? Ah! Now they never leave you. They have left you behind. Photo, not be juju be that. Sorry, oh. May God not allow them, make them kill you. 70 years old man. Oh. Now you mumu na too much. You be mumu. You think say they wise. How many times?
Mumu man. Not you, dear sister. I just thought you should know that Nigeria is not for you. And in case if you haven't realized that, I may be helping to point you to that direction so that you get to know. Right. The insecurity in Nigeria is politically sponsored. The terror sponsor are the ones running Nigeria. There is no terror bigger than political terror, economic terror. I mean, tell me about this. That even if you are not being kidnapped by terrorists, a lot of you have already been kidnapped by your economic income.